Hey guys, it's me, EODGamer here, and in this video, let's talk about Firefly teams, the best teams for many different people. Not all of you have all the popular characters that Firefly wants to play with, so I want to give you a bit of options, and some of you who don't care about just playing the template meta, I can give you some fun teams as well to play in this video. So first things first, Firefly is actually a very simple character to play around because she is quite rigid in terms of the characters that she wants to play with. The most rigid combo that you have is actually you'll see it everywhere. It's going to be the Firefly and the MC combo. The reason why they work very well together is because both of them scale off pretty much the same things. They want to do super break damage. They want to make sure the enemy is beaten down, broken. So this is going to form the main basis of your core comps, as well as Harmony MC giving tons of break effect, which Firefly really likes as well. So these two pretty much bread and butter. You won't really deviate too much away from this. Unfortunately, if you don't like these two combo, you probably will be better off not playing Firefly at all. And if you want to use Harmony MC somewhere else, you probably don't want to play a Firefly because she doesn't get too much value without Harmony MC. In fact, some people would actually say that Harmony MC might be slightly better for Firefly than Runmei. Of course, Runmei is more generalistic, but you can always play both of them together. And that is the template team that you're going to be seeing. The one that probably we can start it off with the most popular team, and I'm going to explain deviations from this because not everyone has these characters. You of course will have Harmony MC. She's free from story. You get her for free even if you don't complete story now. I think in 2.3 they give it for free. Runmei is of course very strong. She provides break effect. She makes the enemies broken even longer. She gives so much damage buffs and also does damage on the side. She's a very fantastic character, very fantastic unit. This team composition is great if the enemy is weak to fire or imaginary typing, because imaginary MC, Harmony MC does a lot of imaginary break damage as well to help you deplete imaginary weakness enemies. Fire, you got two. Gallagher scales off with break effect as well, so really fits very nicely into a team that wants to play into that break effect kind of scaling. Other options, if you do not have Runmei, which a lot of people do not, don't worry about it. Don't force yourself to spend money. I never encourage people spend money that you can't afford. You have a few other options. Firstly, you can go with a buffer type unit or a debuffer. There are multiple options. I think a free option, for example, Esther, is going to be really strong in place of Runmei as well. You get that fire damage bonus, you get the additional speed to help maintain the uptime in Firefly's mode. More speed means everyone can trigger more instances of super break damage in a shorter window of time, so I like that as well. I think it's pretty fine. I do think that Esther might be a pretty good pick. You could run a Welt combo instead, because Welt is a pseudo Runmei. Runmei is extending the duration of break. Welt slows the enemy down, and if you imaginary break with Welt also, you basically push them back really, really far to extend that duration of break. So it's an alternative to Runmei. I always say this in my videos. Welt is a pretty decent alternative. Speed is basically an alternative for Runmei if you don't have that one turn extension of the weakness breaks. This is pretty much going to be the core main teams that you'll see. There are other options, of course, for example like Pella to debuff enemies. Silverwolf is great as well if you are looking to tackle content outside of just fire, outside of just imaginary. Silverwolf adds in a good option on top of that, so you can put in more weaknesses, tackle more content as well. Of course, Firefly does have colorless break in her enhanced mode when she uses her ultimate, which means she can target most enemies, but you want to deplete the weakness fast because your turn counter is running down. That's why you want a character, for example like Silverwolf, to apply in this pivot slot. So tons of options. You could even run a Quek Knife here if you wanted to, just for damage increase, and so many other options that you can run. Other Harmony characters like Bronya, like Robin, these are all possibilities as well. And if you really wanted to, I guess Sparkle, but not as much, because you are mainly focusing more on break and turn order manipulation with this character like Firefly. So some options that I've given you for the pivot slot. The utility slot is where it is actually a lot more varied. One of the downsides about Gallagher is his auto AI is not that great, and sometimes against stronger fights he might not be able to solo sustain, especially if your Firefly is playing at very low life. Maybe you just use some of her abilities, she set a lot of her HP already. Might be a bit trickier to run if you don't have a well-built Gallagher. And if you have other options, let's talk about some of the 5-star sustain units that I think are really strong. Out of all of them, I think the best probably is going to be Huo. Huo offers good amounts of healing, good amounts of cleansing, and good amounts of energy restoration for the rest of your characters as well. So characters like Firefly wants uptime. Harmony MC doesn't mind having energy here, and your pivot slot, whoever you pick as your choice, is going to be quite usable too with Ho. I think she's probably my favorite pick out of all of them, so I'll put her like here. Gallagher is definitely like a close second, especially if you're looking for a character that skills off with break effect. One day when we have like a 5-star break effect scaling character, I think that will definitely take the number 1 spot away. Other characters that I think are quite interesting is anyone that can do damage with their ult on the enemies to help you deplete enemy weaknesses faster. That will be the likes of Luota. Probably lowest priority now. He can hit in an AoE fashion, he can remove enemy buffs, he does imaginary break. If you have Aventurine, of course Aventurine is going to be very strong, he does a lot more imaginary break damage. So you're really like doubling down on fire imaginary enemies. And for those of you who haven't seen our boss weakness guide where we analyzed previously all the bosses, as of up till 2.1, I think a team that is fire and imaginary clears any single hard content in the game. Other than the new boss, I think Aventurine boss himself that is released, everyone else can basically be tackled with Fire Imaginary. It's quite crazy. So Fire Imaginary is actually one of the most meta elemental teams that I want to comment on. If you haven't checked out the boss weakness guide video, you can check it out. I'll link it in like the end screen, or you can just like search in the channel elements guide, best elements in the game, and we talk about that more in detail if any of you like data analysis kind of things. Last but not least, of course, you have Fucc. Fucc is also very strong in the utility slot to give you quantum elements. He gets more damage reduction. The reason why you want a good sustain, and I think a good sustain matters more than your pivot slot for a lot of newer players as well, is because Firefly generally has a HP mechanic that she plays low life, high life, low life, high life. She toggles between both of them, very similar to a character like Blade. So any of you who are familiar with Blade will realize that it's not super easy. You can just run with any 4-star character. You do want a bit more survivability, especially against harder fights. But this is going to be like the main bread and butter Firefly team. Now let's go on with the next one. Let's change it up a little bit. A lot of people are not going to be talking about this, which is a duo DPS teams. Do I think it's meta? Do I think it's going to be very strong? I don't think hyper carry. I think hyper carry is going to outperform for the early parts of the game. But as you tend to the later part of the game, once you have like 6 months in, I think Firefly will shift to more of a duo DPS role. This is going to how you're going to like keep her alive longer, longevity, rather than a character that is solely played in hyper carry brick teams. My opinion, the best character for a duo DPS right now probably is going to be a Boot Hill, and the character that buffs both of them up equally as well for both of them, I think Harmony MC is going to be the cheapest option. Of course, you can put Runmei here, a very expensive alternative. This is going to be, in my opinion, like a pretty good duo DPS team. If you don't have Boot Hill, a secondary option will be Shui. Why is this good? Is because you are able to tackle more elemental comps. If you are a fairly new player or you are investing a lot in Firefly, the worst thing you want to do is bench your DPS, and this actually allows you to play your DPS a lot more. Boot Hill targets any single enemy. He drops in physical weakness. It's like a pseudo Silver Wolf for all of her merits. Similarly, Shui tackles not only expanding your fire and imaginary damage, you now have quantum, you have physical depending on what character you're playing, and Shui also has a bit of colorless breaking, which allows you to tackle even outside of that. So you hit a lot of elements to quickly break them down, so your super break damage can do a lot of the damage instead. And I really like Ho here because energy restoration is so good in this team. Most characters here will skill with attack percentage, you have tons of cleansing, a lot of control, but again, any of the other characters that we talked about already is probably pretty decent. I'm not going to drag all of them into this screen, or if maybe I should, just so that people who are like just pausing and looking at the images can see quicker. I think this is probably going to be a fair duo DPS team for the future. I want to call it like duo DPS break teams because it's really specific to break. You can have many other DPSs in the synergy slot if you didn't care too much about break, but I don't think those will be super meta. So that's why I want to talk about this. This one will scale with time. In 6 months time, you will likely see more teams popping out here, with the differences being changes in the synergy slot when they release more of such characters in future. Now next up, Pure Fiction and Mono. Now this team is going to be specifically looking to tackle fire content. Some of you might realize that you really need fire to burst down as quickly as you can, and some DPSs are not good in Pure Fiction, whereas they are good in like Memory of Chaos, maybe even Apocalyptic Shadow game mode. I want to teach you how to build a team so you can play your favorite DPS in every single game mode, and this is how you want to play if you want to tackle like fire content. So first of all, you want to play a character like Firefly here. I think a good alternative will be a character, for example, like Esther or Fen. These two offer good amounts of fire breaking, buffing fire DPS. Pure fiction game mode, you could run a character, for example, like Himiko here, to offer a lot of AoE damage in the pivot slot as well. Some other fire characters, honorable mentions that you have is like Topaz and Nambi, who is really very single target in nature. Don't really like it too much for pure fiction game mode. You don't really have too much follow-up attackers here other than Himiko herself, which is only periodic, not very, very often. Hook, I don't really like the character currently in the game state. Very, very slow, single target with a bit of splash. Not too great as well. But in the utility slot, you have Gallagher, so a mono fire team. You could argue that you could play Harmony MC here if you didn't really need the sustain, because pure fiction game mode, you don't need to keep all 4 characters alive. You just need to clear as fast as you can. So this is like a pure fire run with a bit of imaginary. But if you do need a bit of sustain, Gallagher is also not too bad. He does offer good amounts of fire damage. At the same time, he is also able to keep the team slightly alive if you wanted to. So I think that this is going to be a pretty good option for mono fire teams. You really want to beat down fire, this is the way to go in future if they like reduce it to 1 enemy weakness and stuff like that, which is kind of crazy. This is a fun one, not meta. I'll try to make it as meta as I can. This is going to be a team, waifu team. I guess some of you who maybe didn't select your Harmony MC as the female version, not everyone did that at the start. But an option, of course, in this slot is to play a character, for example, like Ranmei. Ranmei is probably going to be a team waifu that you can play if you don't have a female Harmony MC here. Other options, of course, you can, is Esther. Is Esther appropriate to call waifu? I don't know. But I think these 3 could be a relationship with each other, depending on which one you are actually going to pick over each other. Fen you could put in here as well if you wanted to. Fire waifu type character. Bronya, I guess, could be here too in the synergy slot. Characters that are basically looking to buff or debuff units, I think, are quite strong in this slot. For the utility section, for sustain, unfortunately, sustain, we only have 1 waifu, right? You only have 1. Can Fushan be considered? I don't even know. If I put this as immediately jail, FBI will come knocking on my door. I guess here, I can't even put links. March 7. Okay, I just guess I'll just put this 3 here, for whatever reason. This is after all a team waifu, so any of these 3 will be good. Other than that, let me see who else. Okay, Clara is also dangerous category. No one else can be placed there. For the pivot slot, I think it's depending if you're going for a buffer or whether you're going for another DPS or some sort of utility. Silverwolf can also be here. I think you have 2 options. You can either run a double support so that you can hyper carry your Firefly, or if you really wanted to play like another DPS in this slot, character that would synergize maybe could be Shui. I guess Shui can be considered as a waifu. Other than that, most of the other characters in the game don't really scale off with break effect. If you are looking to like break enemy weaknesses very quickly, you could consider like Susang to some extent to beat down the enemy weaknesses, break them quicker. Akirion, I guess, is possible if you playing a nihility here and you have E2, so that is a caveat. I'll probably leave that out, not to confuse people. Is Pella legal? I'm not too sure. Let me just like put it here in case she is, just to make it more holistic. So you can see the angle of running things. You could run the other supports as well, like Robin, I think is also pretty fine, but it's a bit crowded here. You could run Hanya, I think it's also possible. Tingyun, I don't know where she's legal. Is she considered? Yeah, let's just leave that out for now. But a lot of options that you have for a team waifu team. There's a lot more female options than male options in the game, especially since we still do not have a Harmony male MC, a male character other than the Harmony MC if you chose it right at the start. Last but not least, let's talk about a new player team for you guys. Unfortunately, as some of you realize, new players will realize, although Firefly's teams is like very, very generally free to play friendly because you can play with Harmony MC, she is very rigid in her team compositions because her playstyle is very simple, very straightforward, very easy to understand. You just play in the new aspect of like break, which is not too difficult to get actually used to. It's just a slightly different playstyle, but very, very simple. Not much complexity in this unit overall in terms of like team comp building. So recommendations for synergy, I think Harmony MC is going to be the best. You all get her for free, so there's no reason why you want to put her in any other team either. And pivot slot, I think I'll put Esther here as the free to play option. You get a bit of speed bump, you to push your team up. And I don't think Gallagher is going to be free because I think he's on the banner. So if you get him on the banner, I'll just put it like super small here that you can consider. Other than that, if you are playing a free-to-play team, I think Lynx is free-to-play still. If you clear like certain amount of the Pure Fiction game mode, you can put Lynx aggro draw onto a character like Firefly. Firefly takes more damage. At the same time, you also can give more energy. It's a way of like funneling the energy into your main DPS as long as you can survive long enough. In the early game, new players might not feel an issue with damage from the enemy. So I think drawing aggro to your main DPS, who's a bit more fragile, still is like quite okay overall as well. So I think Lynx probably will be my top pick. If you haven't reached the point of unlocking Lynx, you can go with Natasha first if you didn't manage to get lucky and pull Gallagher. But if you pull Gallagher, just play him. He skills better than the three of them in a Firefly team, especially in future if more break effect buffers and DPS do come out. And yeah, that is my honest thoughts. Quite a restrictive comp because Firefly is a generally restricted DPS. If you want more of such content, do check out our other content on the channel. And I just want to give a quick shout out at this point to our ZZZ Zenless Zone Zero channel. If you are a new player joining the game, you want to check us out on that channel as well, EODGamer ZZZ, to get a head start, and I'll help you be as efficient as possible, like in Honkai Star Rail. Thank you guys so much for watching. See you in the next video.